Now starting us off with number 10 is the choking. This one's from Redditor River Acre, who said he had this dream or sleep paralysis event when he was in college. When his eyes opened, the room was in complete darkness except the small bit of light coming from under the door from the hallway. He was finding it really hard to breathe for some reason, and then his heart sank as he heard someone breathing really heavily near him, and then he realized someone was staring at him from the corner of the room. Now initially he thought it was his roommate, so he was like, what the hell, how is he even awake right now? He tried to keep his own breathing steady as this other breathing he could hear got louder and closer. Now the figure in the corner started laughing hysterically in a demonic, distorted kind of fashion. The user tried to scream or yell, but he just had no voice. He couldn't move, couldn't speak. It was just a common case of sleep paralysis, really. As he continues staring at the figure in the corner, he sees it jump onto his roommate who's in his own bed and tear him limb from limb. He couldn't even look away, he was just fixated on his roommate being shredded to pieces, and all he could hear was him choking on his own blood as the figure started eating him. Imagine hearing your best friend choking on their own blood and all you can do is watch. The user tried to jolt himself awake properly or throw himself off his bed, but he just couldn't do it. When the figure was done eating his friend, he made his way to the user with his bloody, bony fingers. The figure started licking his cheek as he screamed obscenities into his ear, and then he woke up properly. Or he got eaten. It's a 50-50. Coming in at number 9 is asphyxiation. I honestly have no idea what is happening in this picture, but the mum of this child is pushing the car while her daughter is sitting in the child's seat part of the trolley, which is normal, that's all good, except for the fact the kid has a plastic bag over her head. Like, I'm sorry? The mum put that over her head, or does she do it herself? If it's the former, someone call CPS, and if it's the latter, why is the mum not doing anything? Again, call CPS. When I was young, I remember seeing so many movies where someone would be getting tortured or interrogated, and asphyxiation with a plastic bag is how they'd kill the person. So I feel like if I saw this in real life at a Walmart, I'd actually intervene and be like, what is going on? What is you doing? That is not okay. At number 8, we have piss. It's a Walmart video, you guys. I'm gonna make the titles as ratchet as the store itself. Deal with it. Sue me. So this story came from a former employee who shared that one day a woman came in, bought a bottle of perfume, and then went to the bathroom. And give me a minute, because I don't even want to imagine the breeding cesspool of filth that would be a Walmart bathroom, so you already know she's going to be doing some whack in there. Turns out she was. She poured the perfume into her own bottle that she brought and then filled the actual perfume bottle by pissing in it. And that's not even the worst part. She then had the nerve and audacity to try and return this perfume bottle full of her own piss. The employee in question happened to be working cash that day and was like, okay, this is clearly a bottle of piss, and then called their manager, and the manager had clearly had enough and was just like, just process the return, just do it, don't ask questions. The bottle was evidently still warm from how fresh the urine was. Like, what kind of psycho does that? I would not, if I was working cash, you bet your ass I'm not processing your piss as a return. I'm not refunding you for that. Or I hope she at least dried the bottle. I don't want to be touching your piss. Filling on number 7 slot is the big baby. So this picture was shared on People of Walmart back in 2009, and it appears to be an old man dressed as a big baby. He's equipped with a baby bag, a diaper, pacifier, outfit, and all. And it has no context whatsoever, so I don't know if he was just dressed like that for fun, or if he perhaps has Peter Pan syndrome. Now PPS is when someone either does not want to grow up or they're unable to do so the person ends up being an adult with the mind of a child. So if it's the latter, I don't want to say anything because it's not that person's fault they're suffering, but if he just came there dressed like that to creep people out, it 100% worked. I would walk in the complete opposite direction of this dude and not even make eye contact, to be honest. Now at number 6 is the goat. This one made me laugh so hard because I genuinely had no idea what I was looking at before I opened up the picture. I was like, is that E.T.? Is that some kind of alien? Like, what is that creature? Someone just tell me. Anyway, when I opened it up, I realized this woman was carrying a goat in a baby carrier strapped to her back. And what sent me about this one was how the goat's legs are like this around the woman's back, and then she's wearing a jumper, and I'm like, what is going on here? Like, did the woman never have a kid and so it was just compensating by carrying around this goat? Where is the goat's real mom, and is she in distress because her baby isn't with her? If I saw this, I would legit be on my way straight out of the store like, nah, that's not happening. That's not me. We're not doing that. It was a cute goat though, I'm not gonna lie. Coming in at number 5 is the Walmart killer. This was shared by Reddit user Sonic Underground, who said on their first day working at Walmart, a customer was in the fan aisle, so the user decided to go help him out. You know, when you're a first day employee, all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, not knowing retail will suck your soul out. Either way, the man was holding between two box fans not knowing which one to buy, so he proceeds to ask the user. The user then asks him what size he's looking for what room, and so forth, and at the end makes a very sound recommendation. The customer then shouts "sucker" at the user, slaps the recommended fan out of their hand, and then runs to the cashier with the other one. I feel like clearly no one cares about this employee's opinion. Dumbfounded, the user was like, what the hell just happened to me? And their co-workers joined the user in the aisle laughing, saying that that customer was a regular and he was insane, and also convinced Walmart was trying to kill him. So to try and beat this company's attempts, he would ask the staff what he should buy and then go against their recommendation because it was clearly booby trapped. That's all I'm gonna say. At number 4 is the girl. Now again, I'm gonna preface this with the fact I don't kink shame anyone. However, I would have been very troubled by the sight of this, I'm not gonna lie. Shared by Redditor BB Rodriguez, who is an overnight stalker at a Florida Walmart, she shared that once a really pretty girl came in wearing this leather bondage lingerie looking outfit. And I mean, that's fine, BDSM is so common. However, she was on a dog leash on all fours being walked by 3 older Caucasian men who looked to be meth heads. She was barking all over the store, and employees asked her several times if she needed help, but all she did was bark back at them. The men then paraded her around the store for an hour before buying her a chew toy and leaving. Mind you, it was 3 bloody AM on a Tuesday. Like, was this girl in her right mind? But I can't even go into this, we're a PG channel. I get roleplay and staying in character, but like, do you need help? Blink twice for yes. Or even just bark once for yes. Filling at number 3 slot is the lack of restraint. This one was shared by someone that worked as an overnight stock employee at Walmart. She shared that one night a guy came in drunk out of his mind, which I feel like is no surprise at Walmart. She was bent down filling a bottom shelf with green beans, and when she looked up, this guy was this close to her with his out. He then asked her if she would perform fellatio on him for $50. She didn't even dignify him with a response, she just ran to her manager, and when the manager finally tracked him down in the store, he was in nothing but his underwear, rubbing and pleasuring himself on a pair of women's underwear. Whose underwear was it? No clue. Either way, he was arrested shortly after. Why do people get harassed when they're at work? Like, that pisses me off to no extent. You cannot harass man or woman at work. I will fight you, legitimately. I'm not even worried about it. Now at number 2 is El Paso. Back in August of last year, a mass shooting took place at a Walmart in El Paso, which killed 20 people and badly injured more than 24 others. The victims ranged from being 35 to 82 years old, and 9 of them were in critical condition at the hospital after the fact. The police managed to arrest a 21-year-old perpetrator who had apparently written a manifesto confessing the crime was racially motivated. Calls started coming to the police at 10 AM the day of, saying that's when the whole incident started. As shocking and sad as that is anyone really surprised? I feel like last year there was so many mass shootings in the US, I literally can't even count them on 2 hands, let alone every limb on my body. You heard it first. Actually, you didn't hear it first because it's everywhere. Listen. And finally, at number 1 is the treasure. So this one is really messed up and was shared by Reddit user Mike Michaels, who was a former employee. Mike shared that once a very dirty old homeless man came into the store and asked him to ring him up at the cashier. While there, the man kept one hand inside his jacket and kept looking over his shoulder and just acting super shady and sus. Now Mike didn't think much of it, but he was wary nonetheless and was just trying to scan the items as quickly as possible so the guy would leave. Then all of a sudden the guy looks him straight in the eye and asks, "Do you want to see my treasure?" with the creepiest smile on his face. Now Mike's mind was racing. Did he have a gun in his jacket? Was it a bomb? An actual piece of treasure? The possibilities were endless and the risk was very high. Before even answering, the guy then slowly opened his jacket to reveal a newborn puppy, still slimy, barely even moving, still covered in blood with its umbilical cord very much attached. Like, what the f***? Mind my language, but what the f***? Like, did he find a dog that had given birth and just take a puppy? Like, what the f*** is this? I'm sorry. Beat me out as much as you need to. That's just not on. I hate it, and the puppy probably didn't survive because it needs its mum, right? Thank you, stupid homeless man.
In our number 10 spot today, we have Dorothea Puente. You know the saying, don't judge a book by its cover? Well, this certainly is a case of that. If you took a glance at Dorothea and knew nothing about her, you'd probably assume she was someone's kind grandma who always had some cookies and a glass of milk waiting, but that could not be any further from the actual truth. She was actually a serial killer, and she decided to prey upon some of the most vulnerable people people in our communities, people who were seeking help and assistance. Dorothea operated a large rooming house that was set in a large Victorian home in Sacramento, California. The residents who would often stay there were people who struggled with different substances such as alcohol, people who had been in mental hospitals, and the elderly. All of these people were receiving social security checks, and if they suddenly vanished, she figured no one would ask. In 1982, they did begin to vanish, but of course their social security checks were continually being cashed. Obviously, as it turns out, Dorothea was taking their lives and then their money. She has now been called the Landlady from Hell.
Coming in at number 9 are the Dementors. Now this one honestly made me feel a type of way, like I needed a minute just to process this one afterwards. Shared by an anonymous Reddit user, she said she had a dream where she was asleep within her dream. Like she was trying to fall asleep in her dream, and as soon as she started dozing off, she started hearing a faint whispering all around her. She assumed her parents were talking in their bedroom or something, but then realized she could feel the breath of these whispers on her face. Hence, they were coming from inside her room. She opened her eyes and saw these black floating figures which could only be described as the Dementors from Harry Potter, honestly. They were whispering the word death while floating around her, except they all had faces of people she loved. Friends, siblings, even her own parents. One by one, the Dementors rose above her and started piercing her with this large fang or tooth. And as they did, they would let out the most high-pitched scream before fading into the fang and into the girl's body. And every time they did it, it was this excruciating pain that she just couldn't describe. Even in the dream, it felt all too real. Now, after 5 Dementor creatures did this, she thought she literally couldn't take it anymore and was about to die, and then she finally woke up. At number 8 we have the Smile. Now this one's from an anonymous person who said one night they were suffering from sleep paralysis and they woke up feeling really off. They couldn't move, but it wasn't that was getting to them, it was just this feeling of pure dread. Now imagine all the anxiety attacks in the world bottled up into a jar and put into your stomach. That's how it felt. The person felt like time didn't exist, like they didn't even exist. They looked towards their bedroom door and saw the 7 feet tall figure just standing there. The person wasn't ghostly looking or hollow or anything, it was just a normal person. Now the user remembered every single detail of what the person was wearing: black Doc Marten boots, blue jeans, a puffy jacket, which just didn't make sense since it was summer and hot as hell. But the creepiest part was the person couldn't see the man's face at all. No matter how hard they concentrated, they just couldn't see his face. But then they realized it was because he had no face. It was just featureless. There was a dark void where his face should have been, and they both just stared at each other for a minute before the figure took a step forward and the person just fainted. Complete KO. I don't even understand how they knew they were staring because they didn't have eyes. But anyway, they didn't wake up for another 6 hours, and mind you, they had had a full night's sleep when they saw the figure, so they didn't just go back to sleep, they full on passed out. Filling our number 7 slot is the exorcism of Reacher. So this one's from Suavda Tripathy, who said she has a bit of a hyperactive imagination, and this dream happened shortly after she watched the movie The Exorcism of Emily Rose. One night she dreamed her and her friend Reacher were walking towards a building to go to its roof. Reacher starts going up the steps and her body starts twitching weirdly, and Suvadra asks her what's up, and Reacher just starts running up the stairs and Suvadra just can't keep up. When she finally gets to the top, Reacher has her back to her and she calls out to her. Reacher turns around, suddenly very pregnant and helpless. Before Suvadra could say anything to her, Reacher's body suddenly jerked and she started bending backwards just like Emily does in the film, and if you haven't seen it, consider yourself lucky. Reacher was screaming as she was bending and she was trying to reach out and grab Suvadra, but she just couldn't reach. She started shouting for Suvadra to help her, but it wasn't her voice, it was some deep, evil, distorted voice, and now her face was contorted and savage as well. So she was a mix of pure evil and helplessness. As Suvadra finally reached her, Reacher's back went fully backwards, basically piercing her pregnant belly with her spine. She then somehow moved while in that position and then jumped off the roof of the building. Suvadra screamed and ran to the edge, but then woke up in bed screaming in real life. She was sweating buckets and hyperventilating, and after that she felt she should just hold off on scary movies. Honestly, I cried while watching that movie, and then I didn't watch another horror movie for like 3 years, so I get it, Suvadra, I get it. That movie, no. Now at number 6 is The Devil Within. I feel like sometimes we dream of ourselves doing we would never do in real life. Like sometimes when I'm dreaming, I know I'm dreaming, so I'm just like, hey, let's just enjoy the ride, see what I get up to. But other people, I mean, they have different things in mind. And this one comes from Redditor Cozy138, who said he dreamed he had run away from home and was walking through dunes of snow that were 5 feet high. The user hid behind one of these snowbanks as he looked back at his family and saw they were all smiling around a fire, all happy, clearly not caring about the fact he had just run away. He then ran towards a bunch of shops in this plaza area and saw a grill that had a wire brush next to it to clean it. At this point it was midnight and he saw his little brother come out of one of the stores, so he suddenly decided to take the wire brush and beat him with it. He kept beating him till bits of the wire started tearing his brother's skin off, and he just kept doing it till a huge chunk of the middle of his face was straight up gone. He then used the wire to choke him to the point they both fell on the ground, and the user was just crying while strangling his brother with this wire. When he finally died, and wow, he sure took a freaking beating before he did, the user woke up and was just like, what the hell? Guys, trust no one, not even yourself, clearly. Coming in at number 5 is the clown. Now this one came from Hannah Toda, who said in her dream she was in the middle of a deserted wonderland. Dead trees were surrounding her, her boots were 60 centimeters deep in snow, and in the distance she spotted a cottage. She suddenly lost control of her legs as they carried her towards this eerie cottage. She started getting more and more anxious and worried, and then she saw the clown. It had red glowing eyes that pierced through her, and its grin showed its teeth, which were knives on their own, like legit tiny little knives. And mind you, the clown was small, yet her legs still took her to it, and that's when she felt the pain. Its teeth shredded through her flesh, tearing it open, and all of a sudden, everything just went black. Hannah woke up in her room, but she couldn't move. Her back was high in the air, and the pain where she'd been bitten was still very much there and very much real. She tried to get her back on the bed, but it went up again. She lost control of her body like she had sleep paralysis, but tried to talk her way out of it in her own head. She eventually got her body and back to calm down and woke up for real, and then couldn't get back to sleep for 3 hours. Clowns, man, they're an issue. They're a freaking issue. We have to get rid of them. This is a mission. At number 4 is the devil. I feel like that's someone that appears in many people's dreams. Like, I don't think I've ever dreamt about him personally, but I know so many people that have. And sadly, Reddit user Walla Bing Bang is one of them. She had a dream that she met this really hot guy and fell completely in love with him. Isn't that the dream for all of us? Isn't that all what we want? Anyway, turns out the guy's actually the devil, and he tells her that she's dreaming, but she will bear his child on Earth. She looks down and sees she's 8 months pregnant and begins to cry as he forces her to do things she has no control over. She can't control her mind or her body, it just does what it's told. Almost like when someone's in a coma, but their mind is awake and can hear everything that's going on. Just like that. Even though I'm not her, but I'm pretty sure that's how she felt. Either way, she starts crying because it all seemed way too realistic, and then a week later, in the dream, she asks to shower. He lets her, and when she's in there, she reckons the only way to end this turmoil is to kill herself. But no matter how many times she slashes her wrists, no blood comes out. The devil then appears laughing at her and then takes a knife and cuts her stomach open and pulls her intestines out. And of course the other organs in there as well. He starts shouting at her and telling her torture will be her fate forever unless she follows through on keeping his child. But he just ripped her stomach open, so I'm confused on how the baby or the girl is even alive at this point. And at that point she wakes up crying, no tear in her stomach, but no nothing. But she remembers a voice whispering to her telling her she's gonna wake up now and that a baby of hers will be born on August 23rd. I mean, this was posted 6 years ago, so if you did end up having that baby on that date, please let us know, because I feel like a devil child is something we should all be aware of. You know, just do us that solid. Thank you. Filling our number 3 slot is life. So this one comes from an anonymous person who said the worst dream she's had was to do with some sort of devil creature. The thing was red and black stereotypically and had huge teeth, and it just came and sat on her as she slept. The devil was getting heavier and heavier, and she was starting to suffocate, and she legit thought she was gonna die. She couldn't scream or move, but she finally woke up, and real life was arguably worse. Now her husband told her something or some figure had been pressing on his chest trying to kill him, and when he opened his eyes, it was his wife. Biggest plot twist of 2019 confirmed. Now at number 2 is the baby. I wish this was like a cute one, like honestly I think we need a break, or maybe I do. Fortunately it is not, because otherwise it just wouldn't be on this list. It's a scary list. Either way, Reddit user Froom Loom said they had a dream where a baby had been left on their doorstep, and instead of taking it to the hospital or some adoption agency or keeping it, they decided to cook it, as we all would. They cut it up, and even though it was cut up, the head of the baby was screaming its lungs out. As the user put the baby in the pot and started boiling it, by some freak of nature, the baby started reassembling itself very slowly. The user then put the baby in the oven and it somehow crawled out of the oven fully back together, bit the user's throat off, and then they bled to death. Now I love how the baby went from being the victim in this story to being the killer. I don't want to say the user deserved it, but they were about to eat a baby, so I think they high-key sort of did deserve it. No mercy. Amen savage moments. And finally, at number 1 are the violet eyes. So this person has had their fair share of sleep paralysis episodes, but they recall this one as being the worst, and I fully agree. The person woke up to the sound of someone chuckling and saw a man walk into their room and they were screwed up. I would use stronger language, but I can't. This is a PG channel. The figure had a demonic mask on that had boar fangs on it, twists on its cheeks, and violet serpent-like eyes that were just bulging out at him. Can you just imagine this monstrosity that's just walked into this kid's room like goddess save us all? He had a brown robe on as well with the hood over his head, and then he put his burlap sack on the ground. One by one, he pulled out every single person this person ever loved, ever cared about, was friends with, and each time he put them right in front of them so they'd make direct eye contact. It would then use its sharp nails to slit their throats and would make the person watch as blood poured from their throats. Imagine watching the life drain out of the eyes of every single person you care about. Like, I can't even imagine. After the bag was finally empty, the thing walked to his bed and stroked the person's face with his blood-soaked hands. He then took off his mask, and I quote, "I cannot honestly put into words what I saw beneath that mask. It was an ever-changing face of horror. It twisted and squirmed and never remained still for long, and each facial reconstruction was more terrifying than the last. The last thing he said was, 'Your life will be mine and your soul as well.' Then his face finally settled into one form, the person's own face." Starting us off at number 10 is The Thief. So this was shared by someone whose mum worked as a manager at Walmart. One day she came home proper surprised, and obviously the kid asked what happened that day. That day at work, a woman was caught trying to steal one of the prepaid phones on display. Now when the security guard caught her, she pulled out the knife she'd been using to open up the phone's packaging to cut him open. But before doing that, she cut herself first and then screamed about how she had AIDS and now how the guard had AIDS as well, all because he was trying to stop her from taking the phone. The story is honestly all over the place. I don't even know what to say to you guys. I swear the first rule they teach you in retail is never chase or try and apprehend anyone that's trying to steal, but they also never ended that sentence with "because the thief may give you AIDS," but maybe they should start doing that. I've never chased someone that stole something from the store I worked at. Like, off you go.
In our number 9 spot today we have Arn Johnson. This one is a little different because this person did not claim to be from hell, but rather that they had hell inside of them when they committed their atrocious crime. The trial was well known previously, but it has become even more widely spread as it was the trial that the newest Conjuring movie was based off of. In 1981, Arn Johnson killed 40-year-old Alan Bono, and what appeared to have just been a simple argument gone wrong quickly got a lot more convoluted and confusing. When it came to his defense for the crime, the devil made him do it. This was the first time that demonic possession had been used in an American courtroom as a defense. Arn had been at the scene of about 3 exorcisms that had occurred prior to his alleged possession, and this is why there really were some people who believed his story. At the end of the day, the jury in the trial decided to convict him of manslaughter. In our number 8 spot today we have H.H. Holmes. I've definitely talked about this guy before in other videos because he is considered America's first serial killer, and he was especially gruesome. H.H. went to medical school, and shortly after finishing he began killing people in order to steal their property. He built himself a huge, horrifying home that he had built to include things like secret passages and trapped doors. There were soundproof rooms, there were doors that only locked from the outside, and then they had gas jets on the inside of the room, and he even had a kiln to cremate the bodies. Not only would he get close to women so that he could take control of their finances and then kill them, but he would also require his employees to take out life insurance policies that named him as the beneficiary. It isn't exactly known how many victims he had, but it's thought to be somewhere over 200. He was sentenced to death when he was finally caught, and it is said that before his execution he famously said, quote, "I was born with the very devil in me." I think that might just be something that me and HH can agree on. In our number 7 spot today we have verkisto. This story is quite a bit different than the others on this list today for some obvious reasons. This story isn't coming from someone who has done a bunch of evil things, but instead coming from someone named Verkisto who says that they've met Satan upwards of 100 times and who is trying their best to stay as far away from him as possible. Verkisto described some extremely horrific things that they said they witnessed Satan do, and even said that they've experienced possession, influence, and oppression, all while battling Satan and his followers. They said that he would manifest himself and appear visible to even the naked eye, and apparently this was all so that he could check on the status of Verkisto's torment and demise. So far it seems that Verkisto has been able to steer clear of the whole demise thing, but this still sounds like a far from pleasant life. This story was posted on the internet in June of 2020, so hopefully by now maybe things are looking better for Verkisto. In our number 6 spot today we have Sam Little. Sam Little is well known for being one of the worst serial killers ever. He has confessed to taking the lives of more than 90 people, and while authorities have only been able to definitively connect him to 30, they say they have no reason to doubt the validity of any of his other confessions. Sam was able to continue on his horrible path for so many years because of the fact that he committed these crimes in different states and different counties, which made it way harder for them to be able to connect his crimes to each other. In an interview with an investigator named Sergeant LeBlanc, as they discussed religious beliefs, they spoke about the nature of sin. Sam stated he had no fear of God and said that God made him this way, so why should he ask for forgiveness? He said that God knew everything that he did. He also allegedly told a few select people that he believed that he was the devil. In our number 5 spot today we have Luis Garavito. Luis gained a nickname from the media of the Beast, and I think that's a great indication of the nature of his atrocious crimes. He is said to be one of the worst serial killers in the entire world, and it is believed that his victim count is up in the 300s range, which is absolutely shocking. He confessed to 147 crimes and he was found guilty on 139 of those counts, which put his sentence at 1,853 years. But here's the thing. This trial took place in Colombia where he lives, and apparently there is a law which puts the maximum sentence at 30 years. He was sentenced in 1999, meaning there's only a few years of his sentence left, and apparently there's a chance he could get out early for good behavior. According to Luis himself, he committed these crimes because he had made a deal with the devil, and he explained that satanic ritual was involved in all of his crimes. In our number 4 spot today we have Richard Ramirez. Richard, who is also known as the Night Stalker, was a serial killer who terrorized the streets of Los Angeles in the 1980s. He was known for his MO of invading homes, which left him initially being dubbed as the walk-in killer, but he had another signature that was concerning to many people, especially during the height of the satanic panic. Richard was known for leaving behind different satanic messages at the scene of his crimes. Because of his satanic signature, after he left his first pentagram at the scene of a crime, authorities became worried that he was a Charles Manson copycat, but instead he was just his own kind of monster. It is said that he would leave more pentagrams behind while also telling his victims to swear to Satan instead of God. During his court appearances, he would hold up a pentagram, and after pleading not guilty, he said, quote, "Hail Satan." In our number 3 spot today we have Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey is one of the most well-known serial killers, with his crimes taking place from 1978 to 1991. His crimes are much too brutal and horrifying to detail on this channel, but he is known for taking the lives of 17 different people. At his trial, not only did he plead not guilty, but his attorney had some interesting words for the court. His attorney stated that his bloody pattern had caused him to believe that he was the devil, which was intended to bolster his insanity plea. His attorney said, quote, "He became enamored, overwhelmed, caught up in the character in the horror movie Exorcist 3. The character was Satan because he was the personification of evil." Not only was Jeffrey found to be sane and ended up being sentenced to multiple life sentences in prison, but not too long after his sentence started, he was killed by a fellow inmate. In our number 2 spot today we have David Berkowitz. Also famously known as the Son of Sam, David is a killer who didn't necessarily claim to be from hell, but placed his crimes on a demon who had taken the shape of the dog that belonged to his neighbors. I know, I don't believe it either. Obviously. He led authorities on one of the largest manhunts ever seen in New York, as he left little notes behind trying to be arrogant, thinking he was invincible. Well, clearly he wasn't, as he was caught and convicted. He later admitted to making up the dog story, which, like, duh. But he did say that instead he was a member of a violent satanic cult and his crimes were committed as a part of that. In our number 1 spot today we have Ronald DeFeo. If you've seen Amityville Horror, in some ways you'll be familiar with this case, although the movie adds a strong paranormal aspect that most likely wasn't present in reality. Ronald was charged and convicted of taking the lives of his entire family, and earlier this year he passed away in jail at the age of 69. After his passing, certain letters that he had written were released. Before his death, Ronald had given many different accounts of what happened on that terrible night, which has made it impossible for anyone to really know for sure. While the entire case has become infamous, with many people believing that the crimes could be attributed to some kind of paranormal force, even Ronald himself stated, quote, "There was no demon. You know who the demon is. I am the demon."